Hey guys, welcome to the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast, where today we are doing a deep dive into the upcoming series between England and the Blackcaps, the team, the players, the stats, the analysis, to break it all down without one single pulled hamstring in the dressing room in sight. I'm Rob, this is Rich, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Rob, how's it going?
Fit, and I'm absolutely not injured from walking around in my socks, which is a miracle because it seems to be the trend, it's the in thing.
It's dangerous. Have you been near a dressing room?
Not for 7 years.
No. So you're all right then. You're not going to tear a left hamstring. It's very specific injuries that you get in changing rooms, but that is what's happened in the last week or so, isn't it? So we're going to get into that in a moment. We're going to get into the squads. We'll get into what we think will be the 11s. Were we anywhere near, Rob? That's another question we need to ask with our squads.
I think you were closer than me because I had the IPL guys in my squad and being really strong, whereas it's interesting. It's an interesting squad with plenty of opportunity, mate.
It really is. I think so. Yeah. So let's get straight into it. Let's get straight. More time to chat rubbish about the squad after we name the squad. So we'll take us back a little bit first, and then we'll get us all up to date. So England squad was announced. It was Joe Root, obviously the captain, Jimmy Anderson, James Bracey of Gloucestershire, Stuart Broad, Rory Burns, Zach Crawley, Ben Folkes. More to come. Dan Lawrence, Jack Leach, Craig Overton of Somerset, Ollie Pope, Ollie Robinson of Sussex, who was uncapped, Dom Sibley, Warwickshire, who's recovered from his broken finger, Ollie Stone of Warwickshire, and Mark Wood. So from that squad, obviously, there's some big names that aren't involved. Johnny Bairstow, Josh Butler, Chris Woakes, Sam Curran, probably missing some others. IPL guys not selected. They're going to be told to put their feet up sensibly, as I said as well. Yeah, I said that, Rob. Yeah. Yep. So Jofra Archer also, he misses out. He played in a game, didn't he? He looked fantastic. We all got dead excited. We got giddy about it. And his elbow just wasn't right. He's had surgery again. And this is real. They're talking about make or break surgery.
Wow. That's serious.
It really is. It could change, the trajectory, easy for me to say, of his career. They're going to take the time on this one. He's looking ahead to the Ashes over this winter, World Cup, and then the Ashes. So forget about Jofra Archer this summer. If we see him at the back end of an India test, then great. But let's just fingers crossed that everything goes well with his rehabilitation. So that was the squad as it started. Then Ben Folkes, after the game against Middlesex, decided to slip. They call it an accident. I would like to call it an incident. It just sounds a little bit more, what went on here? So we had a slipping accident, and he's torn his left hamstring. The guy's been waiting years to make his home debut in the test match. Played over in Sri Lanka, played wherever, it's spinning like crazy, difficult conditions. Here you go. You can have your home test debut at Lord's. No, I would much rather slip over and tear my hamstring. So how big a gap in the squad, you're asking, Rob? Well, they had to fill it with two people. Hasib Hameed, Nottinghamshire, born again, opening batsman. He's been in the runs again this year. 2016 made his debut for England. It went so well, and then it just fell off a cliff. He's climbing back up that cliff face now, and he's back on form. And Sam Billings of Kent, the wicketkeeper batsman, more of a white ball cricketer, I'm sure we'll all agree. But he's in there, we believe, only as cover for the wicketkeeper, which will be James Bracey now, I'm sure. So, Rob, that is where we are with the England squad. Take it away. Pick the bones out of that bit.
It's a good team. It's what I like what they've done. They've given the IPL guys the rest, and they've gone with the guys that are actually in form. You remember time and time again for years in this England team, you'd see guys scoring 1,000 runs, get the call up when they're out of form after 3 years of good form. And I like the fact they're going with Bracey, they're going with Ollie Robinson, guys who have earned it and done it time and time again. Very, very good players. Bracey's as a gloveman, is a very good gloveman for Gloucestershire over the last few years, averaging 47 this year, mate. Just class 6 centuries to his name. And Ollie Robinson just seems to get better and better the more that he plays. And every single season's a real big step forward for him. He got 63 wickets a few years ago, 74 in 2018. This year he picked up his 9 for 78. He's a great cricketer. And you're picking him when he's bowling well in good conditions to bowl in England. So it's kind of going, we've got these guys. What do we do to get the best out of them? Well, we need to put them into a really good situation. And this is a really, really good situation for these new guys to come in, mate.
That's it. And they've picked players, Craig Overton has to be in the squad, sorry. Ollie Robinson had to be in the squad. James Bracey had to be in the squad. One or two other players were on the periphery, weren't they? We talked about Matt Critchley's of this world, etc. Alex Lees, maybe. But they've picked what I would say is probably about the right squad. It's just now, will they play them? This is where it all changes. It's fine to pick these players, but you have to now give them an opportunity. There's no point resting the IPL players. There's no point calling these guys up unless they're going to get an opportunity. They spoke about not wanting to have any debutants down under in the Ashes. They never seem to want to do that, do they? Give them a debut at the Gabba. It's fine. Chuck them in. It's all good. But use them. Just use them. They have to play, these guys. They have to get a test match each. Robinson and Overton, you cannot then have them carrying drinks around for 2 test matches. No. They have to play at least one each, I think. That's my take on it. Ollie Stone, he's a slightly different. He's played a little bit of test cricket, as has Overton, hasn't he? I'm right in saying that about Ollie Stone before we go any further, aren't we?
You are. 2 test matches, Ollie Stone.
I assumed so.
7 wickets at 13, mate, and he's looked quick.
Yeah.
When he played, he looked quick, but he's injury prone.
Exactly. I mean, spoiler alert, but I think you can pair up a couple of these bowlers quite nicely in an England squad. And we're not going to get into what we think the 11 will be, but if you take away Broad and Anderson for a second and Jack Leach, you can put Ollie Stone and Mark Wood as a pair. You can put Ollie Robinson and Craig Overton as a pair. So I think there's an obvious opportunity to give everybody a run out in this two-match test series and make it fair and just...
No, they're valid points, mate. And I think what you're going to see is maybe a splitting of Anderson and Broad. The series as a whole comes down to how England play Anderson and Broad, and you know what this rotation policy is like that they've got going on, and they want to give these guys game time. Do they put their eggs in one basket and go Anderson, Broad, test one and rest them? Or are they more about seeing opportunities and seeing if people are actually good enough to go to the next level and play against these world-class players?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's all about, isn't it, really? It's about managing the workloads at the moment. And again, I will just keep emphasising that point. There's no point of calling these players up unless you're going to give them opportunity. James Bracey is an interesting one for me in this squad as well, because he's obviously going to take the wicket-keeping gloves and bat 7 now. If Folkes was in, I think they were looking at Bracey probably batting at 3, probably sneaking in there. Maybe Sibley missed out. Maybe Zach Crawley opened with Rory Burns. That would have been interesting to see. But obviously now he's got to take the gloves and they're more than likely going to bat him at 7. It makes sense. Rory Burns, just a quick one on him. We kept talking about him just doing enough, but not quite going big. Well, he's now into the top 10 of the leading run scorers in county cricket. He's scored 554 runs now, with an average of 61.55, 104 not out being his single century, but also his highest score. He's now in good form. So Dom Sibley, the torch is shining directly into his face at the moment, isn't it? He's now a little bit unfair. Wisden Cricket of the Year, as we keep talking about last year. How much value we want to put on that is another thing. But he won the accolade. He was clearly one of the top 5 players of the year that hasn't already won the award. Sorry, I'll keep hammering that.
You're right. So, he's under the spotlight, isn't he? He's the guy out of those top ones, because Burns has done enough in county cricket. Sibley's not played. Slight tangent. Sibley 2 double centuries in the county championship 2 years ago. I'm just putting that out there. So he's got the ability to build big, but he needs runs early because he's not played. He'd struggled in India. And you know what? And I think the way things have worked out and they've had to maneuver people around, and you talked about maybe Bracey batting at 3. Bracey's going to bat down the order because he's keeping. So they don't want to move Zach Crawley up. So what do they need? They need a backup opener in case Sibley or Burns goes down or fails. And that's where the Hameed connection comes in. And he's straight there. If Sibley has a horrendous first test and a couple of ducks, we could be seeing the rebirth of in international cricket of Hameed, which everyone needs in their life.
It's fantastic, isn't it? You wonder whether it's come a little bit early. It's great to have him back around the setup. I would imagine he'll end up just backing up over the next 2 games.
Yeah.
But it is unbelievable to see him back. I think it's just undoubted. Like I said, 2016, I think he may have played 3 test matches. I'll have to go back to the stats in a moment and have a little nosy. He did play 3 test matches. He's got an average of 43.8, high score of 82, 2 half centuries, including one seriously gritty one with a broken finger, I think it was. Yeah. So he's got something about him. He's gone away. He's come back a different player. I think one of the criticisms of Hasib Hameed was that, from hearing on the circuit, is that he probably put a bit too much work in, a bit too much thought into everything. He's probably just relaxed a little. Some good flowing lot.
He's got cracking hair, mate.
He's got great hair, short leg as well. Get him in there. It's a fantastic selection. Dom Sibley, he will start now. I think if James Bracey had have been in as a batsman and wicketkeeper cover, I think there could have been a question that Sibley sits out the first test and they would have batted Crawley with Burns. Now Burns scoring runs, Bracey at 3. But I think now Sibley gets a reprieve. He opens the batting. Again, don't want to pick this whole team in one go. But he gets the open batting with Burns. Crawley at 3, Bracey at 7. Hameed is there waiting. If Sibley does anything wrong in the first test, I think there's a chance, an outside chance, though, that Hameed can get a game. I don't see the keeper Sam Billings playing in this 2-test match series unless something seriously goes wrong. And can we just take a moment just to talk about that? Because when both of us first heard the news, we both went to say, well, what? Why? Who? Billy? What's he doing in the test team? Yeah. He's a white ball cricketer now, isn't he? Let's be honest. He's played one county championship game this season and had 1 innings and scored 11 runs. 29-year-old, he's uncapped at test level, but obviously he's got good experience in the white ball arena. He's obviously well liked. Any thoughts on it, Rob?
It was a little bit of a conundrum. He is a decent first-class cricketer. It's just the way his career has gone that he can get in the setup and be around the team. 22 T20 internationals, 31 day internationals already at white ball. And that's he feels a little bit pigeonholed because his availability is pretty poor for his county. He played twice last year. He's played once this year, 4 times in 2019. It's not being in and around red ball cricket all the time, but because he's held in real decent regard, like he's good enough to get a contract in the Big Bash. He's that sort of quality white ball player. I hate to say it, but it ticks boxes for England when they're doing it. They've got someone who's part of the system who, a little bit like Josh Buttler, they go, I think he could go and do something special down the order. We don't need him to grid out a 30 or 40, but we want someone who might be able to win us some matches down the order.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the guy.
It's a funny one. It's almost like Ed Smith's had one last selection. They basically rang him and said, Ben Folkes is out. We're going to bring Hameed in as batting cover. What do you reckon? Yeah, Sam Billings, white ball cricketer. It's got Ed Smith's fingerprints all over it. I'm not saying he's been involved, but it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I had a little look at who potentially could have been in the team instead. I was thinking, surely there must be somebody else out there. And that's when it actually gets a little bit more clearer of why they've picked Billings. Because I'm looking at the batsmen. You just look at dismissals. The leading dismissal this season in the county championship: Tom Moores of Nottinghamshire, John Simpson of Middlesex, Michael Burgess of Warwickshire, Stephen Davis, we remember him from years ago, played cricket for England, Somerset, Pointer at Durham, Brown at Sussex, Ben Cox. There's a lot of players out there. Could they have picked 2 Ollie Robinsons? Sure, that'd have been great. 2 Ollie Robinson debutantes. That'd have been amazing. But the only name in that list, really, that I've just mentioned there that I would say maybe would have been a shout, and someone they used to talk about potentially for England selection, was Ben Brown of Sussex. Averages nearly 40. Experienced player. He must be hitting his 30s now. But that's where you start going, okay, well, Sam Billings actually makes a lot more sense. He is in and around the squad. He's played at international level. He understands what's required of him. 35-ish first-class average. Scored about 600 or 700s. It makes more sense now when you start actually breaking it down, looking into it a little bit more. But I do hope that Bracey gets both test matches, give himself a proper run. And then I would just love to see the next conversation, because Folkes is missing opportunity. Butler's done well. But if Bracey comes in and does well, what happens then? Yeah. Johnny Bairstow's still somewhere near. He's a bit of a satellite, isn't he, at the minute? Just, flowing around, but he's not quite in the squad. So it's always a good position, I think, when you're looking at England squads and you're going, we could pick 4 or 5 wicket-keeper batsmen.
We're strong. Our bowling lineup is strong. Our wicket-keepers are strong. We've just got issues around 1 to 3 in the order, mate, and we have for 5 years, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's it. It's such a great opportunity, isn't it? It's going to be a really, really positive, really strong, New Zealand bowling attack. They're going to do a bit. They're going to bowl well in English conditions, because it's not it's not unlike the conditions they have over in your neck of the woods, mate, in New Zealand. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a challenge for them, isn't it? Lord's pitch on that slope, take your chance, Dom Sibley, otherwise someone's coming for you. It's all big questions at the moment. Do we want to jump over to the visitors, Rob? I feel that is a good way to go, mate. Let's touch on this Blackcaps squad. Yeah, so your knowledge base here. Let's rattle through first. So New Zealand squad. We spoke about it in a previous podcast, but we'll just go through it again. So Devon Conway was the name that really jumped out to us. He was an uncapped player. We expect him to make his debut on this tour. Yeah. Also uncapped, Rachin Ravindra and Jacob Duffy. Rachin Ravindra, opening batsman, very, very talented. Jacob Duffy, as Rob explained about, he's more of a what we'd call like a county sort of, county pro, isn't he? He's a good bowler, steady bowler, but he's nothing outrageous. Obviously good enough to warrant a New Zealand international call-up, so let's not be too harsh. But Ravindra, he can open or play in the middle, or he bowls a bit of spin as well. He would be the youngest Kiwi debutant since 20-year-old-ish Southee back in 2013, so that's an interesting one. So let's get the squad. It's a 20-man squad at the moment, and it will stay a 20-man squad, but it will then be reduced by 5 after the England series when they play India in that World Test Championship. So the squad as follows. Kane Williamson's captain, Tom Blundell, Trent Boult, we'll talk about in a moment, Doug Bracewell, Devon Conway, Colin de Grandhomme, Jacob Duffy, Matt Henry, Kyle Jamieson, Tom Latham, Daryl Mitchell, Henry Nicholls, Ajaz Patel, Rachin Ravindra, Mitch Santner, Tim Southee, Ross Taylor, Neil Wagner, BJ Watling and Will Young. That's a big squad, Rob.
Evergreen. Will Young reference. Sorry about that. Can't do it, mate.
Yeah, you can.
The thing I love about this Blackcaps team, it doesn't matter where they go, where they play, they're always just the underdog against anyone. And they just
plucky underdogs.
They are. And New Zealand like it that way. That's the New Zealand way. They're very humble sort of guys. They don't big themselves up. Bit tall poppy syndrome. You'll get cut down pretty quick. But this is you look at the England team and you go, this is a young, experimental, see what they've got. This is the best New Zealand team there's probably ever been from a 1 to 11 aspect. And they're at their peak. This is their do or die time to win a championship. The runners up several times in many competitions, but World Test Championship rolling around, this squad is built to win games of Test cricket, mate.
Yeah, I mean, you may have had better batting lineups over the years, potentially, but Kane Williamson, obviously being in any, is a strength. The bowling attack is where it's at, though, isn't it? Wagner, Southee, Trent Boult, and then you've got backup and cover, haven't you? Carl Jamieson, he's the big fella, isn't he?
Oh, huge, mate. Huge. He's got the wingspan of an albatross.
Can I do it just once? Oh, he's big airs.
Oh, big airs, bro. They're class, mate. We'll break down some of these players, but Devon Conway is, and we spoke about him on the pod before, he's been earmarked to play for the Blackcaps since he moved over here from South Africa a few years ago. 2020, got his, hey, tick, you're a resident or whatever you are, you can go and play cricket for us now. 3 one-dayers, 150, 100, averages 75, 14 T20s, absolute class, mate. 450s, strike rate of 151, average of nearly 60. But that isn't, he's not just a white ball cricketer. First class cricket the last 2 years in the Plunket Shield. Oh my God, I said it right for the first time. 456 runs at 47, 701 runs at an average of 87 with a high score of 327 the season before, mate. Everyone knows this is the guy. And this Blackcaps team from 1 to 11 has been so solid and consistent every single time. He's got to get in this team. So Devon Conway is going to come in. He's probably going to open. That's the word on the street. That's the lowdown. He is going to be shoehorned into an opening spot.
This is what we want to know. Where does he usually bat then in first class in New Zealand? Where would you usually
top 3
see him? Top 3. Okay, so but would he be a number 3 more than an opener usually?
I'd probably say more of a 3 than an opener, but that's
okay. I
wouldn't take that as legit. He could well have opened more than he's batted at 3. It's just I've seen him bat at 3.
It's interesting for us to know because as a lot of these names are familiar to English cricket fans or cricket fans in general, obviously, but it's sometimes 1 or 2. It's just not quite. Every time a team comes over to tour, it's always a little bit of a shuffle, isn't it? Okay, we know Williamson, we know the likes of Ross Taylor, etc., and a lot of these players, but there's always these guys that come in, he's an opener. Okay, he must be an opener, but is he an opener? That's what we have to dig into, and that's why it's great to have you over there, Rob. That's one of the good reasons you're there.
Do him a bit, but yeah, it's just a really, really strong lineup. A lot has been made of Rachin Ravindra about him in, and young Indian family, came over when he was really young, so he's way more Kiwi than I will, and he'll talk completely different to how I will. But class player, he's averaged over 50 in the last 2 seasons of playing Plunket Shield cricket. Just a really solid player, good enough, average 59 2 years ago. The word is that he's not going to open. He's not going to get a game one, but he's obviously really highly touted and highly thought of and good enough at a first-class standard. And now people look at the New Zealand standard and go, well, it's not that great. Well, actually, there's only 5 teams. So although it's a smaller market, you get real high-quality games, and a lot of the Blackcaps do come in and play a lot of the games. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, if you're boiling it down, it becomes a hell of a better competition, doesn't it? So that's interesting. Yeah, Ravindra was one I was thinking maybe he's got that chance of opening, but that's interesting that at Conway. But then if you've got Kane Williamson generally at 3, I think it's a tough one, isn't it, to put Conway at 3 unless you start shuffling that batting line up a little bit. I suppose it depends on the question marks over injuries, though, doesn't it? Ross Taylor, as we spoke about when we first spoke about this squad, he had a bit of an issue with a calf, and when you get to that certain age, as I know well, calf issues, they're going to be there. We also had question marks. Doug Bracewell, whose last test appearance 2016 in South Africa, he had a bit of a hip injury. Colin de Grandhomme had a bit of a hamstring as well. So just worth noting about those guys. Nothing I don't think is clear on those. I think the trend is that they're all fit to, and good to go. But it will be interesting just to keep an eye on that just in case. Trent Boult, Rob. I think there's a bit of news about Trent Boult as well, isn't there?
Yeah, Trent Boult. So he isn't actually in the UK.
Well, he might not play then.
there's the news. He's expected back in the UK. I think he flies out on the 3rd, so he'll arrive during the first test match. Gotcha. He's had a lot of fatigue from IPL and things like that, and he just wanted some time at home with the family before the whole England trip for the next couple of months. So got given the green light, gone home. And you know what? It actually probably solves the Kiwis a selection headache around their bowling lineup, because for years, it has always been Wagner, Southee and Boult. And these guys are outstanding. Wagner, 145 wickets in the last 5 years. Southee, 136. Boult, 134. That was the seam attack. And then Santner as a spin, the Grandhomme bowling little dibblies. All of a sudden, Carl Jamieson comes in from bowling out the clouds, takes 70 test match wickets, is it? Or 36 test match wickets he's got at 13. And someone's got to go to fit him in, because he's the last few test match complete game changer. So it solves a selection headache for that first test.
Absolutely. And New Zealand, as much as they'll be looking at this as a really positive 2-match test series against England, we've got one at Lords, one at Edgbaston. They'll also be thinking, we want to get ourselves into great preparation for the World Test Championship against India. That is their pinnacle of this tour. Yep. It's not 2 test matches against England. So they need to make sure that people are hitting the ground running. Carl Jamieson is bounding in. It's a great opportunity. And again, like we spoke about for England, if you bring in these guys over and they've not played in these conditions, or they've not played much in these types of conditions, get them in. There's no sense in bringing them over to carry drinks about. It's just as simple as that. I'm not saying play a second 11, but play the players where you can. Just rest 1 or 2. We know BJ Watling will play every game this summer because, as we spoke about before, he's set to retire. So there's locks like that, isn't there? Kane Williamson will no doubt play both test matches. But it might be like, Ross Taylor might only play one of the 2 tests, for example. He's been around the block. He knows his game. If anything, he probably needs to sit out one, just, rest up that leg a little bit, if assuming he's fit to go for one of them. Will Young, perhaps, is he a middle order option? Or would someone like Ravindra maybe get an opportunity a little bit lower down? As we said, he can play a middle order role as well.
Yeah, it's difficult to know. Will Young obviously got 2 centuries for Durham this year, did really well after a little bit of a slow start. But where does he come in? He opened for Durham. Does he come in and try and fill an opening spot? He can back down the order, whereas Rachin Ravindra is more of a genuine out-and-out opener. So maybe covered down at that number 4 role for Taylor in case he goes down. But you're right. The lineup is so stable. Kane Williamson's ranked number 1 in the world in Test match cricket as a batsman. 919 on the world ranking scale. And to put that in context, that is the 21st highest of all time.
Wow. Okay.
That's how good a form that he's in.
Good Nick.
Yeah, very, very good Nick. Ross Taylor's kind of on his way out. One guy that I want to touch on and go, this guy is not to be underrated, is Tom Latham. I've spoke about him before on the podcast in previous iterations we've done and gone just how good this guy is. In terms of openers, made his debut 2014, mate. He's gone on, scored almost 4,000 runs at an average of 42, 11 centuries. That is immaculately solid, and so is his season-on-season stats. The last 4 or 5 seasons have been 45 average, 60, 50, 40. He's world class, and you're struggling to find a more consistent opener in the world game. The only thing that New Zealand have is we're such a small market, so far away, play 75% of our games at home. People don't see it.
No, that's it. You look at the stats and you go, that's pretty good, but who's he done it against? But yeah, Tom Latham was an interesting one. Didn't he start out as a wicket keeper?
Yep.
Yeah, and then he got that role, didn't he? He got that opportunity to open and he's not looked back. Basically, what I would like to try and propose now is that we can maybe look at doing an exchange deal with one of our middle order players in county cricket for one of your openers. It seems like New Zealand have a surplus of openers at the moment. So I think there's a deal to be had here. Maybe we can just swap some passports over. Nobody will know. Pretty Patel, she loves those foreign guys coming in. So yeah, we could maybe work something around. So, but yeah, so many options for this New Zealand team, and it looks really strong. It looks really impressive. I can't wait to get going with this series. Let's have a look at the lineups then, Rob. What do we expect them to be? I'm going to rattle in the top 7 for England, and I don't think it's disputable. I think Burns and Sibley will open. Whoever takes first ball, I really don't care. Zach Crawley will bat at 3. Joe Root, the captain, at 4. Ollie Pope at 5. Dan Lawrence, the Essex man, at 6. Just want to note what we've got here also in the top 6 is we've got Joe Root and Dan Lawrence both bowl spin. Joe Root, I think he's getting better and better with age. He's maturing like fine wine. And Dan Lawrence does bowl a little bit as well. James Bracey, the debutant, he'll be coming in at 7 as a wicket keeper. Please tell me you're not going to dispute any of that just for,
no,
I go the other way.
I'm all good with that, mate. There's nothing I can say that I don't agree with in that. I think that's
awesome.
Safe.
So where it gets interesting and maybe, let's say, a little bit complicated is the bowlers.
Yeah.
Do you see Jack Leach playing in the first test? Because that's the question, isn't it?
I'm absolutely torn because I don't like going into a test match without a spinner, a frontline spinner. I hate it. And I can see the reasoning for not doing it. But if it was me picking my team, I would still have an out-and-out spinner in my team.
That's fair enough. So I mean, there's plenty of options. We've got basically 6 seamers that are going to go into 3, maybe 4 positions. So we've got Craig Overton, we've got Ollie Robinson, we've got Ollie Stone and Mark Wood. Like I spoke earlier, pairs. I think they're, I don't think you'll see both of those players. So, I don't think Overton and Robinson will be in the same team. And I don't think Stone and Wood will be in the same team. Yeah. And then there's Broad and Anderson. We could pair them up as well. I think first test, though, that you probably see Broad and Anderson play. Start of the summer, it's at HQ, back at Lords. I think you'll see both of them in the team. So then we've got 2 spots for 5 bowlers.
Yeah.
Where are you going with this then? Are you putting Jack Leach in that 11?
For me, yes. I'm going with Jack Leach and I'm going with Mark Wood.
Really? Okay, so you're not going to give a debutant. You're not going to give Overton or Robinson. The informed bowlers, you're like, nah, not bothered about them.
If it's
you're going proven and already played loads of games.
Yeah, I think the thing is, the only way I see England winning this test series, because they're so inexperienced in their squad compared to the peakness of the Blackcaps, is Broad and Anderson versus the Blackcaps. 100%. If Broad and Anderson win and bowl superbly, England will win this series because they're still the 2 best opening bowlers in the world up there with the Aussies in my eyes. So if you want to win the test, those 2 have to play this game.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. Yeah. So you got the 7 and you're going Broad and Anderson, you're going Leach and you're going Mark Wood.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a tail, that is, mate.
Yeah, it's a huge tail. It's a huge tail. And that's the problem is I'm going, how do I win this game? Because you've got an experienced batsman in the team as well. I'm going, how do I win this game? To win this game, Broad and Anderson need to bowl the Blackcaps out. So they are both playing. 20
wickets, win the first test. Second test, gives you an opportunity to rest some players, maybe rest Broad and Anderson, perhaps.
Yeah.
Or Wood and, Anderson. Broad's been playing a lot of cricket. He's fit and firing, isn't he? So he's the man I would expect to play 2 test matches if either of Broad and Anderson do play 2 test matches. Just my take on that one. Okay, for me then, I'm going to go, I think we will see a 4-man seam attack. I think they're going to go with Root and backing up of Lawrence with the spin. I think Anderson and Broad both playing this first test, and I'm going to go with Overton over Robinson, and I'm going to go with Wood potentially over Stone, but that's a very fine one. So I think that's where they find the balance in this team, is that instead of that all-rounder, which they haven't selected, the Ben Stokes of this world, they've gone with the 4-man seam attack and using the spin out of the batsman. And I don't think Roots should be undervalued. He bowled really, really well over the winter. had a bit of a workload, didn't he? He was almost seen as a second spinner, basically, wasn't he? So that's how I see it going. So what about New Zealand, Rob? What are we going to lock in for them?
So Tom Latham at top of the order.
Yeah, we've got Conway. You were saying
Devon Conway at 2, Kane Williamson, ranked number 1 in the world at 3. One thing I want to say about Kane Williamson, mate, and it's when you look at the statistics of the player, averaging 54 in Test match cricket, that's 5 higher than Joe Root. He's played 20 less Test matches, but scored 4 more centuries already. Just putting it out there. That's the big batting battle.
Yeah.
Root.
It is, isn't it? Williamson, Root Williamson, absolutely. Sorry for talking over you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, it doesn't really matter. Is Williamson better than Root? Is Root better than Williamson? Because you're kind of splitting hairs a bit. But he is arguably, you could make a case for Williamson being the best red ball batsman in the world easily. 100%. I'm not sure you could quite justify getting Root to number 1.
No, you can't. What I like is Joe Root is finally starting to what could be his peak. He's started to turn that corner and start scoring hundreds for England, big double hundreds. And that's the sort of guy that England have been looking for a long time. Being that Kane Williamson that's just like, let's say there's top 5 players in any sport. Normally the top 4 are way better than the guy that's in 5th. You look at tennis for years, you had Federer, Djokovic, Murray, and someone else that played tennis.
Pete Sampras.
But there's always like 3 or 4 guys, and then there's a little bit of a drop off. Now what you're seeing is that everyone's gone, there's top 4, and Root's part of that. And then it's like, Root's not good enough. Now you're seeing Root come into the mixer and start to put up the numbers consistently against the likes of a Smith, Crawley, and Williamson, and come into that conversation. And if Root outperforms Williamson here, that is probably the biggest statement he's made in terms of being a top 4 player he's made for years.
Yeah, big time. I like the sound of that, mate. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like we said, isn't it? It's that Broad Anderson versus the batting lineup of New Zealand. That's one of the keys to this series. But it's also who performs. Is it Root? Is it Kane Williamson? Which one of those guys steps up and scores the runs, the big runs? We're not talking about he gets 120 runs over the series or 200, whatever. Can somebody go out and make a Test winning score in either of those Test matches? That's what it's all about. So we've got Latham, Conway, Williamson. Ross Taylor at 4?
4, Ross Taylor. If he goes down injured, then you've got a bit of a conundrum. Tom Blundell has actually been opening as an interim measure for the Blackcaps for a while. He's not an opener. Number 4 will either go to Will Young or Tom Blundell, in my opinion, depending if Taylor goes down.
Just a quick question. If Taylor isn't fit, could you see Kane Williamson doing a Joe Root and going down to 4, Conway to 3, and maybe Ravindra coming in as an opener?
I don't.
Too much change, maybe.
For me, yes. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, but for me, if I've got the best player in the world that bats at 3, Ricky Ponting bats at 3, we need to move people around. We've got the best 3 in the world. Like, just leave it. Let's work out we do elsewhere.
So that's the lock. Okay.
Number 5, Henry Nicholls, who won against England at Eden Park a couple of years ago in the series down here. Incredible player, really. He's gone and he's averaging 44 with the bat at number 5. And, sometimes you can look at it and go, well, he's only averaging 44. But for England for so long, we're struggling to get guys to average 40. And this Blackcaps lineup is full of them. And he goes under the radar a hell of a lot. But he does struggle away from home. Now, a lot of those Test matches are in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and India. He averages 50 at home, 57 at neutral venues, and 24 on the road. So, little bit of a question mark around that, but he is a high quality performer. And BJ Watling in his last series at 6, who's possibly the most consistent wicketkeeper batsman of the last decade. Absolute class player.
Absolutely. We spoke about it, didn't we? He's broke a number of records, and he will end his career as the finest wicketkeeper that New Zealand has ever produced. And over the last X amount of years, he is up there with the best in the business. In international cricket. So do not underestimate. Just because, like Rob said earlier, just because we don't hear these names all the time does not mean that they are not absolutely top of the class, world-class players.
Let's make it clear. England smashed India in England the last time they were there. New Zealand smashed a Kohli-led India 2-0 at home by 10 wickets and then by another 100 or so runs the last time they were here 2 years ago. This is a top-notch lineup. And BJ Watling, 39 Test matches at home, averages 39. 28 Test matches in the last decade away, averages 39. That's solid. Absolutely immaculate consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's going to be at 6, wicketkeeper batsman at 6, gives him that balance to play the all-rounder, which we presume will be Mr. de Grandhomme.
If it definitely, I think Big Col, he's sporting a cracking mullet at the moment.
Another one. It's not quite Peter Hanscom style. I mean, Hanscom is full on, dog on a rope in the back of his ute sort of mullet. But the Grandhomme is a lush mullet, isn't it?
They're everywhere, mate. I was on a course just before Christmas, and I walked in and I saw a guy, and I went, mate, I love your hair. He was rocking a mullet. I hadn't seen him for a while because I've not been in the office. And he goes, yeah, business at the front, party at the back.
It's the one downside of being down under, mate. Those Antipodeans, what is going on with the bonnets?
They love it. They love tashes and they love mohawks, mate. But the Grandhomme will fill this role. He's good enough at this level. He's not. He's just carnage, mate. He goes in with the bat. He knows what he's there to do. He's there to just try and smash the ball to the boundary, and it works for him. He averages 37 with the bat in Test match cricket from 24 matches. It's not the longevity of a Ben Stokes. He's not as good as a Ben Stokes, but his average at the moment is higher than a Ben Stokes, and that sometimes needs to be taken into account. That again, it's a bits and pieces player that fills the role in the team that the team needs him to do, and he does it, and he's very clear on what it is he needs to do.
Yeah, big
good
time.
Management.
Effective player, knows his role, playing to the role, not worrying about his average too much, just going in and doing the job. So that's your top 7 then, Rob. We're gonna, I assume we'll have a spinner in there. I mean, he used this guy. I'll announce this guy, and then you can go with the seamers. But this used to be one of our favourites, didn't it? Mitchell Santner to his parents. Top class spinner as well. Again, just another one of those players that's had a bit of an up and down run with injuries, but he's a quality performer, and he should be locked in at 8. And then give us your seamers.
Yeah. Definitely Santner at 8. His bowling's a little bit. It's okay. It's okay.
It's improving. It was improving before the injuries, but I think, as well.
Again, with a good seam attack, he provides balance, a little bit of control, and he averages 25 with the bat at number 8. Again, knows his role in the team. Bowling attack with Trent Boult out, who would have been an absolute shoo-in for it. Carl Jamieson will bat at 8 or 9, may even take Santner's spot to 8. He's averaging 56 in Test cricket from 6 Tests, 36 wickets in average of 13, 4 fifers already in Test match cricket, mate. One to one. He's not rapid. He's not rapid. He bowls 80 to 82, but he's 6'7" and a tall, lengthy, rangy 6'7". So he's. I'm really interested to see how he does against England, who in English conditions should play him potentially quite well, whereas West Indies and Pakistan and Bangladesh really struggled against the bounce that was going on. But Jamieson at 9, Southee and Wagner 10 and 11. Southee he's only 32 years old, but I can remember him making his debut against England and scoring 80 odd down the order. And that was when Ryan Sidebottom and players like that were still around. So he's still going 292 or 302 Test wickets in average of 28. I watch him bowl, mate, and I'm like, he's not going to get anyone out. It's too slow. It's not quite working. But actually, he always seems to pick up wickets time and time again, and he's Mr. Consistent. And then you've just got all heart and bollocks on the line, Neil Wagner. He takes pride in bowling on a flat deck and bowling all day and bowling fast, 80 mile an hour, bowling halfway down and just being a pain in the backside, mate. When they went to Australia, I was like, he's just going to get pasted. He sorted Steve Smith out with the short ball time and time again.
He's aggressive, isn't he? He's got. I wouldn't say he's a small guy, but he's got a little bit of that shorter man syndrome, hasn't he? Where he's really hustly, bustly, aggressive. He's got the Dean Elgar Award for this New Zealand team, isn't he? He's the gritty. He's the grit of this side. I like the mix of this. Who do you think takes the new ball then? Jamieson, Southee, Wagner. Who's got the new ball out of those 3?
Oh, mate, that's a great shout because it's always Southee and Boult. Always Southee and Boult.
Absolutely. So Southee would keep the new ball, would presume. Do you think that? I from how you've described it, I think Jamieson would be a hell of a shout against Sibley, a struggling Sibley, assuming he's opening and Burns. We've got the slope at Lords, coming down from that height, getting some variable bounce, perhaps, depending on how the surface plays on the first morning.
It depends, because they might look at it and they might go, we'll have Wagner, who can tail it back into a right-hander. He can do it, and he can bowl full sometimes. So they may go, right, we'll have Wagner from one end with the slope, just bringing it into the pads, and we'll have Southee the other end taking it away. Got to get in a bit of assistance. I'm not 100% certain who will get it. The guy that's going to miss out, who we've not touched on, is, oh my God, my brain. Matt Henry, who was brilliant in the World Cup for the Blackcaps, has not quite managed to force himself into the Blackcaps reckoning on a regular basis just because the other guys have been so good. But 2018 came over, played for Kent in the county championship, 75 wickets at an average of 15. Was superb in the World Cup, is almost the next in line until Carl Jamieson comes out of nowhere and just starts taking over the world, mate. So unfortunate to be missing out, may get a run out in the second test.
But I remember him coming over and taking an absolute hatful, at least early on in his spell anyway. Yes. I don't know if it was a relatively short spell. So again, it talks to the strength and depth of this squad. Will Young, as you spoke about, has already scored some runs for Durham, I think you said, didn't you, since he's arrived. So it's going to be a heck of a series. We get the first game on Wednesday, depending on when you listen to this. Hopefully, it'll be still ahead of you. But on Wednesday at Lords, and then the following week, possibly the following Wednesday, I believe the 10th, is going to be at Edgbaston. So it's a 2 test match series. Lots and lots of interest in this. I always find England series when you've got new players or up-and-coming players coming into the team as most interesting. The thing I'm going to be really interested in as well, you spoke about the New Zealand top order, the averages. They're all averaging 40 plus, apart from maybe BJ Watling, who's just a slight bit underneath it. England have only got Joe Root averaging over 40. He's averaging 49. The rest of them are late 20s and early 30s if they're lucky. And that's all the way down to Lawrence. Bracey obviously hasn't played yet. So that there's huge question marks. We love Lawrence. Ollie Pope's been on great form as well so far this year. We really like Zach Crawley as well. Sibley and Burns, I think we're all a little bit like, well, if they do it, great. If they don't, well, let's just rotate. Let's get somebody else. But we need to see those boys step up. It's not just about Joe Root scoring runs for this England team. It's about one or two of those others at least saying that this is my spot and I want this spot for the next X amount of games, X amount of years. And going up against that absolutely almost legendary middle order for New Zealand.
It is, mate. We spoke about the difference in experience at this top level between the two squads, mate. And if we go with the top 7 we've picked for England, they've scored 12,500 runs at an average of 29, which doesn't sound too bad, but it does show where they are. And that's elevated by the fact you've got Joe Root in there. If you take the Kiwi top 7, they've scored 13,000 more runs and their average is 8 higher at 37.3 across the board for that top 7. So that's the difference. And that's why I think you need a Broad and Anderson to give you the experience with the ball. Because if you take their 1,100 test wickets away from this lineup, you're actually left with Mark Wood with 50 wickets, Leach with 62 wickets, and then you're putting in a couple of guys that's even less. So they need to even up that experience playing field. But it does, when new guys come around, it does give fresh opportunity. And if the guys are ready to take it, they can take it pretty fearlessly.
Yeah, big time. I mean, just very, very quick point on that. As you just said, I noticed something this week. Wisdom just tweeted something out. Craig Overton is averaging 44.77 for 9 wickets in Test match cricket so far. But he is not that bowler. And if he gets that opportunity, he needs to go and show that he's the bowler that's taking, since 2020, 68 wickets at under 14.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's the difference. He's gone away. He had his opportunity for England, but didn't quite work out for him. He got pushed to the back of the queue a little bit, and he's come back and he's took wickets left, right, and centre. He's got out of the shadow of his brother that went off to the Oval, and he's just taken wickets. So I just really want these guys to get an opportunity. And there is so many spots in this England team that aren't quite locked down. Yeah. But we think we've got the right people in a lot of those spots. At least in the squad. Lawrence and Pope, especially, and Crawley, they're the right people for those spots, but they now need to go and prove it. It's great to see a 267 or whatever it was for Zach Crawley. It's great to see Dan Lawrence on debut score some runs in Sri Lanka. Ollie Pope scoring runs, and he's one of those guys that will score a few runs or a big score, and then he might not score a few runs for a few innings. We need to see those guys lock it in. And that's the big takeaway for me in this 2-match series. Looking forward to seeing New Zealand. Always enjoyed watching New Zealand. See if the Beige Brigade can sneak their way into Lords. But yeah, it's going to be a cracking couple of Test matches, Rob, and I'm sure we'll be here to break it down after each game as well. And I look forward to it. We will, mate. We will. So prediction time
first Test match. We've picked our teams. Who's
give me any of that? I think we spoke about this before briefly on one of the pods, and I'm very much getting splinters in my backside, and I could see it being a 1-1. I really could. I don't want it to be. It's always nice. Yeah, England 2-0. Let's go full Glenn McGrath on it. But I'll go 1-1.
1-1, pretty reasonable. So I put it out on Twitter for the guys to ask, and I said, who wins the first Test? 68% said England are going to win the Test. 12% Blackcaps, 6% the draw, 12% the weather.
Okay, so the weather has as much chance of putting a team together and winning this Test match as New Zealand have. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going out there and I'm saying that the Blackcaps are going to win this Test match.
I think that is probably more likely because I've said 1-1. I think New Zealand win the first Test, and I think England come back and win the second Test. Everybody gets up for playing at Lords.
Yeah.
Every travelling team gets up and plays. It's a bit like the Fortress City ground, mate. When some of these teams come to Forest, that's my excuse for how shocking last 20 odd years.
You mean that time Rochdale turned up?
No comment.
No comment.
Move on.
It is going to be a cracking series, mate. Like Rich said, we'll be back as soon as the Test matches are done. We'll be back with a review and a preview for the second Test match as well. Can't wait to see it. If you've enjoyed this, guys, leave a subscribe on the channel, a big thumbs up wherever you are listening to this. Rich, thank you very much. Ready for the cricket of summer to officially start.
Absolutely, and we have actually got sunshine with the wettest May just about ever. Give us some sunshine, June. Go on.
Love it. Till next time.